Gilmore and chair of the Six Churches Justice Core Team, and it's my pleasure to welcome you all here tonight. And I'm going to turn the floor over to Tom Twist, who will introduce our speaker.
Okay, and I see we've got Michael Drohan is joining us here too. Okay, yes, I'm Tom Twist, and I'll be co-chairing this with the esteemed Dr. Peter Gilmore. And I have to confess that my Wi-Fi is unstable. So if I freeze or I get kicked out of the program, or if I just start jumping around erratically, don't be alarmed. And Dr. Gilmore has promised that he'll take over the reins for this. I want to welcome everyone to tonight's discussion about the recognition last summer by the General Assembly of the Presbyterian Church USA that, quote, the government of Israel's laws, policies, and practices regarding the Palestinian people fulfill the international legal definition of apartheid, end of quote. We're going to be opening with a presentation by Reverend Chad Collins, and then we'll have plenty of time afterwards for questions, comments, and discussion. And once again, tonight's program will be recorded and will be available for viewing pretty soon on the Sixth Church website. We're especially fortunate to have as a speaker tonight the Reverend Chad Collins. Reverend Collins was born and raised on the lands originally belonging to the Monongahela, Haudenosaunee, Lenape, and Shawnee peoples, now called Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. After graduating from Penn Hills High School in 1994, Reverend Collins went on to the University of Pittsburgh, where he graduated in 1998 with a bachelor's degree in Africana Studies. He then worked as a youth pastor at Mount Hope Community Church on Penn Hills for 3 years. Following this, he enrolled at Pittsburgh Theological Seminary, graduating in May of 2005 with a Master's of Divinity degree. After serving as youth street outreach worker at Valley View Presbyterian Church for 2 years, he became the pastor there in November 2005. In 1999, Chad married Johanna, and from that union, they have 5 wonderful children, Keith, Micaiah, We've
lost, Tom has been muted. That I think, so just, you'll have to unmute.
I did that, Tom, if you would unmute yourself.
Yeah, there I did. Okay. So he's grateful to God for the gift of serving God and God's people and helping to continue the vital ministry of Valley View Presbyterian Church in the beautiful neighborhoods of Garfield and East Liberty. After traveling to Palestine in 2014 and 2016, Chad spent 3 years on the steering committee of the Israel-Palestine Mission Network of the Presbyterian Church USA, and he currently serves as co-chair of Pittsburgh Friends of Sabeel North America, or FOSNA as it's called, which is a trans-denominational Christian organization seeking justice and peace in the Holy Land through education, advocacy, and nonviolent action. In the fall and winter of 2019 to 2020, he served as the co-coordinator of the 22nd Annual Pittsburgh Racial Justice Summit, and he began working as the FOSNA national organizer in April of 2022. So just take it away now, Chad.
Well, thanks, Tom and Peter and all of you. And I think that I do know all of you, at least I know many of you very well. And I think I've met all of you at some point. So I'm grateful to have an opportunity to share with you tonight. And I was sharing with Peter and Tom that my plan tonight is just to share with all of you how the General Assembly of the Peace USA kind of got to its decision. And I want to just highlight a couple things along the way and share some of my own reflections thoughts about what its significance is to us and to our church, those of us who are part of the PCUSA Church, and to our nation in our efforts to continue to do justice. And then I would welcome not only questions today, but I would love to think, because many of you that I know are not only caring and justice loving people, you care about the situation, particularly in Palestine and Israel. So I would love to know what you think the significance of this decision is. So first of all, some of you know this about your brother Tom, but he is a recent addition to the Israel-Palestine Mission Network, which we are grateful for. But just so you know, those of you who don't know a lot about our denomination, the Presbyterian Church USA is one of several different Presbyterian denominations. And one way in which we have tried to grow and become better globally, we are deeply rooted missionaries in the best and in the worst ways. And we've been trying to come out of the worst ways of our past, whether that's here in this land or in other places. And so we have a mission. Our headquarters is in Louisville, and there is a sort of a center for our witness in the world there. And so you've heard the term IPMN, or Israel-Palestine Mission Network. There are, I don't know how many, but countless mission networks within our denomination. And those networks are supposed to sort of advocate for the areas that they represent. And as I said earlier, we have grown. We're not perfect yet. Some of you know Hunter Farrell, who's at the seminary now. He was the head of our mission agency for about 10 years. And Hunter has written a book recently, co-wrote a book, but his work has helped to get us out, continue to get our church out of the sort of dark ages of Christianity in the way in which we share or invite people to know God's love in our witness. And so, we've gone from different missionary ways, and now what we have is what we have are called mission co-workers, so that there are people all across the country who go to a place not to change the way they think, not to make them into little Americans or little British or whatever, like they used to do, but to go and partner with those on the ground. So we do have somebody in Israel-Palestine. His name is Doug Dix, and there's some other Peace USA representatives there, but by and large, he's the one. So all that to say, Israel-Palestine Mission Network is one of several mission networks, and because of the significance of the situation in Israel-Palestine, IPMN has been probably the most active and the most productive and progressive and prophetic voice within our denomination. So how we got to the General Assembly voting to call Israel an apartheid government, the Israel-Palestine Mission Network wrote an overture, and a church, this is the stuff that I'm not good at, but our denomination doesn't do anything without collective. It's very democratic. We don't have bishops, we don't have, there are big wigs, of course, in every church, but we don't have, our power comes from the people. So that's one good thing about the Presbyterians. So either way, I want to just begin by reading the overture that went to the General Assembly. This is You can find this on the IPMN website if you want, but it says this. So yeah, we want the General Assembly to recognize that Israel's laws, policies, and practices constitute apartheid. So this is how it begins. To solve a problem, one must first acknowledge it and name it. Since 1967, Israeli laws and policies have divided the Jewish and Palestinian populations along racial lines by the creation of separate reserves and ghettos for Palestinians. They've established two sets of laws, one for Israelis and one for Palestinians, which give preferential treatment to Israeli Jews and oppressive treatment to Palestinians. I want to put a little side note into that. There are different sets of laws, certainly for Palestinians who live in the West Bank and in Gaza, but those Palestinians who are actual citizens of Israel, also, there's over 60 or 70, you all might know more than me, but there's, tens and 30s or 40, 60 plus laws in the state of Israel proper today that if you're an Arab citizen, you're discriminated against by the laws. So it's not just for those who are occupied, it's for any, it's different, it's worse for Gaza certainly and West Bank, but those living in supposedly as citizens, if you're not Jewish, you are legally discriminated upon. So continuing, it says, we acknowledge that there's been expropriated Palestinian land, water for Israeli Jewish settlements only, denied the right to freedom of residence to Palestinians, and denied Palestinians the right to a nationality. Israeli laws and policies are specifically designed for the purpose of establishing and maintaining domination by Israel over Palestinian citizens in Israel, as I said, and in the occupied territories of West Bank and Gaza. And then they say there is a word that names what Israel does, and that word is apartheid. Then it says here, the overture asks the Peace USA to recognize that. The overture asks the church to join an ever-growing chorus of human rights organizations and churches that have concluded that Israel is committing the crime of apartheid against Palestinian people. So it lists a few. So this is good fuel for us to know that we're not alone. First, the Nobel Peace Prize laureate, you may know this, Bishop Tutu, wrote to the 2014 General Assembly of the Peace USA, and this is his quote, "I know firsthand that Israel has created an apartheid reality within its borders and through its occupation." So of course we know that Bishop Tutu can say that because he knows firsthand what apartheid is, as he was instrumental in bringing it down in South Africa. And then in January 2021, B'Tselem, which is one of the most respected human rights organizations in Israel, published this article. So this is a Jewish organization. A regime of Jewish supremacy from the Jordan River to the Mediterranean Sea. This is apartheid. Just another little side note. You may have heard people chant, "From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free." Well, some in some sectors equate that slogan to something Hamas has said when the cry that there will be freedom from the river to the sea is a cry that has been there long before Hamas ever came. And the opposite, of course, is what we have today. And what we know more and more has been the goal of the state of Israel from its formation. even before it was formed, and that would be to have this regime of Jewish supremacy or Israeli supremacy from the Jordan to the sea, from the river to the sea. Anyway, they, B'Tselem, this Jewish organization, calls it apartheid. 2021 April, Human Rights Watch, an international organization that monitors human rights abuses in countries, published a report saying this was apartheid. And then in February 2022, some of you probably remember this. This was kind of the biggest. Amnesty International came out with a 278-page report entitled Israel's Apartheid Against Palestinians. So this was one of many things that was brought to the General Assembly. And as I have understood it, when things like this, they go to committee first. And then when a committee votes on it, if they vote favorably, it goes to the floor for the whole assembly to vote on. So I do know that in the committee, this overture won, voted, it was 28 in favor of it to 3. The vote was 2022, was it June? I can't remember, June or July of this past year is when we usually have our general assemblies. Yeah, we can find out the exacts, but it was the summer of this past summer. So anyway, because it came out of committee favorably, it gets to the floor, and then there's debates, and then there's a vote. And I just found this out tonight, thanks to Tom, but now I can actually see it myself, that the vote to affirm this overture was affirmative by 266 to 116 negative. So not as dominant as 28 to 3, but pretty significantly, that's a very strong vote in our history. That's a big win. So this is what the vote says. This is what our denomination, those of us in the Peace USA, this is what we passed this past summer. Number one, we now, as the Presbyterian Church USA, recognize that the government of Israel's laws, policies, practices regarding the Palestinian people fulfill the international legal definition of apartheid. Apartheid is legally defined as inhuman acts committed for the purpose of establishing and maintaining domination by one racial group of persons over another racial group of persons and systematically, oppressing them. And this occurs in Israel, Palestine, through all the things I just sort of said. 2 sets of laws expropriating Palestinian land and water for Jewish-only settlements, denying the right of freedom of residence to Palestinians, dividing the population, denying Palestinians the right to a nationality. So this is number one. There's three things. Number one, all of that. Number two, and this is where we'll come back to. This is, the question for us tonight is, what does this mean? What's the significance? And and I think we can answer that in a couple ways. What's the significance for us, those of us who are part of this church? What's the significance for the broader movement? So either way, the Presbytery also agreed to do this. Number two, urge members, congregations, presbyteries, and national staff units, including the offices of interfaith relations, to seek appropriate ways to bring an end to Israeli apartheid. So once again, not to go off, if we were a Catholic church and the Pope made a decision, there wouldn't be any urging or encouraging members to do anything. It would be done, or at least that's in theory. So our denomination can't force our churches to do anything, but we can urge them. So strongly urged that our churches, presbyteries, other parts of our denomination do things to bring an end to Israeli apartheid. So that again, something we can play out and talk more about in a little bit. The last thing is that that we direct our stated clerk to communicate this action to all of our councils. So that's pretty simple, straightforward. We want every church council to know that this is the decision that was made. I can and I will put this in. There's a lot more to read if you care to, but I'll put this in the chat right now for future. And if you want to look at it, there's a lot of rationale. There's a lot more written, but you can see it there. Presbyterian Church kind of -biz.org. I'm not sure all that means, but anyway. So that's where we are, and that's how we've got to be in this conversation tonight. I do want to highlight one thing, a couple quick things. And the one is, in my reading in preparation for tonight, this is not, and then those of you who know our church, we don't do things quickly. For anybody who's concerned about this decision or uncertain about its appropriateness, I can respect that. You know, apartheid is a very serious word. We know it from South Africa, but of course we know it from our own country. I mean, Jim Crow was apartheid. Slavery was, our history. What we've done to the indigenous as well as to the Black and brown and others, is apartheid. So we don't throw it around loosely. But just so you know, this was a decision that we've been stewing on this as a denomination for 12 years. So this did not come quickly, sadly. I wish it had. But for those who might be concerned about it, and just so you know, we Presbyterians take a long time to make significant decisions. And so that being said, this was a 12-year process. And one other thing just to note, and this is part of our growth as a church, and we'll talk a little, or as individuals, as a country, whether we're church or not. The reality is most often, in my experience and my understanding of history, organized, institutional, religious organizations often take too long, honestly, to do the right thing, or they ignore the struggles for far too long. But that may be the case, which I think it is. But we have made the decision finally. I mean, and this is one of several decisions that the Peace USA has been making to confront and to respond to the cries of the Christians in Palestine and the Muslims in Palestine. Like you probably know this, or some of you do. There's been, from civil society first, and then from the church, and from many other organizations within Palestine, have been calling, much like South Africans did, much like Dr. King and many before him did here, in his letter to the Birmingham jail, right? How long are you comfortable white pastors going to tell us to wait? We're not waiting anymore, right? So Palestinians have been saying the same thing. And they've been writing mass, hundreds of organizations, parts of the church, civil groups, other faith leaders have been writing to the West, writing to us. And it's still taking too long, but finally this is at least a stand that our church has made. So we want to do something with it and not just let it be on the books, right? So that's why we're here tonight. Okay, real quickly, my my sense is that there's some significance about this decision in a couple ways. One, as we've been thinking and as I've been sharing, it's a decision first and foremost about morality, right? About what's right. Any exceptionalism, domination of one religion or ethnicity over another is wrong, always, right? Anywhere and always. Those things are wrong, and that goes against what we believe as Christian people, or those of us who are Christian. And I would dare say it's what those of us who are Jewish in the Jewish religion would stand against, the Muslim religion as well, and most, if not all. So this decision, 12 years in the making, it's a decision that follows previous decisions, and I think they're all rooted in what's right, and that our denomination wants to do what's right. At least it says it does, and then it finally here has done what's right. No matter what, we want to be on the right side of history, of decisions that particularly when there are people who are being hurt, oppressed in any form or fashion. Our documents as a church say that we do not support that, and sometimes it takes us a long time to really put our foot down, but we've done that now, like we've done in the past with slavery, segregation, women's rights, LGBTQ, and on and on. Not that we've scratched, crossed every issue off our list as a church, but we're moving in that direction. And we finally have done not enough, but we're doing what we need to do in terms of this matter. And I think something significant, again, many of you are better historians than I am, and it's not certainly just in the church's hands, not just our church, but others. But we do know that when groups of people come together, and especially sometimes institutional groups like a church, eventually there will be a win down the road. So I think one of the significant for our hope, to fuel our hope, is that the more organizations, churches, other faith groups or non-faith groups who come out publicly and say this, the more, even though it doesn't seem like our government will change, we know that if there's to be real peace and justice in that land, America has to change. You ask any Palestinian, who's the greatest, who impedes peace and justice and reconciliation in their homeland more than anyone, it's the United States. So that's why it's important that we stand up as people of moral will and conviction. And so all that to say, when people do this, we know historically that it may take a long time, but eventually the right will prevail and good will prevail. We hope and we believe. So it's a moral decision, but I think secondly, probably less significantly in my mind, but maybe in some of yours more significantly, it is an institutional decision. And so number one, this and it's like dominoes. If you look back at the BDS that was making its way through mainline churches, one did it, and then a couple years later, another did it, and on down. So institutionally, it carries some weight. for other congregations, and it offers weight or support or encouragement to local bodies like Sixth Presbyterian, or in my case, Valley View Presbyterian, or again, other non-Presbyterians. But I think for Peace USA churches, it it carries some weight and some backbone for us to act locally and globally how we feel led along these lines. And so so just off the top, I think those the significance of those decisions are, there is some significance there. Some of you, again, I don't want to assume all of you agree with the decision of our denomination. And I know that there are several folks, certainly within our own denomination, that don't agree with it. The vote wasn't unanimous. And of course, they're representative of the body. And in terms of how it's impacting the world in this movement, again, I think it's at least one positive step toward dealing with the truth, so that areas of oppression and injustice in this situation can be confronted. The last thing I want to say is, and then again, questions and comments, certainly thoughts that you may have, is what can we do about it as a church, as a local body, or as a community? And this is where, I'm sure many of you have ideas, and I'm all ears for that personally. In the work that I do, I'm always interested in hearing from others. But there is an organization, a coalition that's being formed that I wanted to share with you tonight, and then I will close and we can again discuss in any way you would like. The organization, it's connected, it's a coalition, we'll say first, kind of being led, but not by itself, but it's being kind of instigated, I should say, organized by the American Friends Service Committee, which is, as you know, part of the Quaker Church. And AFSC has invited, and I don't know all the bodies that are a part of it, but the IPMN is, the Presbyterian Mission Network is, Methodists, some Alliance of Baptists, Episcopal, a few other church groups, Quakers, the Unitarians. This is beginning as a Christian, a call to Christians, but it's not strictly that. But there, what we've come to do in the last 6 months is form something called the Apartheid-Free campaign, and it's not fully public yet, but organizations like churches and other organizations like churches are being invited to learn from this website, and to pledge to be an apartheid-free congregation if they're a church, or it could be a campus, it could be obviously a synagogue, it could be a mosque. It doesn't need to be, and it won't be. We're working with Jewish Voice for Peace, American Muslims for Palestine, and other groups, non-faith groups as well. But we're just beginning in this center where we are, as and reaching to Christians at the moment. But yeah, so So I want to read to you this pledge, and particularly for those of you at 6th, I would invite you to, and I will put this in the chat as well. I would invite you, Peter and Tom and others, to consider bringing this to the session and being a part of. We are hopefully going to have a public launch sometime in the end of May or June, but right now it's like a soft opening, I guess, and people are being invited. All of you, whether again you agree about this or not, I would encourage you to read this, to look at this website and consider taking the pledge. Again, right now the pledge is not for individuals. It's primarily focused on groups of people like a church. So either way, the pledge is pretty straightforward. So if a church would want to, or another group would want to sign the apartheid-free pledge, it would say, we affirm our commitment to freedom, justice, and equality for the Palestinian people and all people. We oppose all forms of racism, bigotry, discrimination, and oppression. And we declare ourselves an apartheid-free community. And to that end, we pledge to join others in working to end all support to Israel's apartheid regime, settler colonialism, and military occupation. So this is the pledge. And you don't, this is an invitation to consider that, and there's a lot more. The website is not completely finished, but it's finished enough for our viewing. I put the website in there, and then I will also just put the pledge as a separate link. And once again, whether you're in a church or not, I would encourage you to, or if you're within other groups, which I know some of you are, to take a look at this. And one of the significant things, this is my words for now, and I'll shut up. That's hard for me. Some of you know I love to talk. I think when Amnesty International is a little bit more weight than the PCUSA, right? So when Amnesty came out and said, this is what we see, we've studied it, a 278-page worth report. When we were beginning this coalition, and I'm on it, with my work with FOSNA, it feels like there's more freedom to use the term apartheid with Amnesty's report. And certainly, again, with the PCUSA and other denominations beginning to use that term, it doesn't just sound like some radical groups from the fringe. So that's part of, I think, obviously it's still overall probably fringe in some ways. But I think the reason that we're pushing this apartheid-free campaign, as we are bringing it out more publicly soon, will be to try again to maybe capitalize on some of these organizations and the work they've done. Our church denomination, certainly one, but many others, to try to really bring about the kind of peace and justice that I think, whatever we think about the term apartheid, we all want to see. So this is where we are. Okay, that's enough of my voice. I'll happy to try to answer questions, but be glad for any kind of discussion moving forward.
I just want to make one comment, Chad. I'm so excited to hear about this development within the Friends, because I was in Atlanta during the anti-apartheid struggle against South Africa, and they were a really powerful force. The Friends Committee in Atlanta, they did a lot of international work. They brought in a lot. They were always involved in bringing in South African speakers. The history of Atlanta with the civil rights movement. I saw Leah Tutu, Desmond Tutu's wife, Desmond Tutu. So there was just, this is just an exciting development, I think, and maybe with all these religious organizations coming together. I mean, like you said earlier, the strength is in numbers and education. The other thing, when I think of the word apartheid, it's a legal term in the world. And it carries weight legally in the international community, whether or not the US honors that international community or Israel honors that international community. It's everything you said, the morality involved in it, the history involved in it, but also the legality involved in it. And I'm positive that the Presbyterian, the General Assembly thought that through to make such a decision. And then the other thing I'm thinking of is that the ability for you and others to go into some of the other Presbyterian churches perhaps and speak about, I mean, I don't know, that would certainly be up to you, but I think this is just a really promising development from my point of view.
Thanks, Kate. I will just say, I think that's, word of mouth, person to person, ultimately is the best way, I suppose. And that's kind of the way the Peace USA works. Churches can make their own decisions about things, but when the larger body makes a decision, they're encouraged to begin that process. And actually, real quickly, I see Lori has put a good question there in the chat. But just to say real quickly, if you go to the website of the apartheidfree.org, it starts with, join the movement, first learn. You want to learn about it first. There's going to be there are some resources there, but there will be more. And then the second kind of thing is, then if you learn enough, maybe you'll want to take that pledge with us. And then after the pledge, what kind of actions can we be taking together? So I think it is important, Kate, as you bring up, that we learn, again, not just from the legal realities of what apartheid is, but we learn from those who have gone before us and done this work. I see Lori's question. What are our neighbors, or what are we hearing from our Jewish neighbors in Squirrel Hill? I probably can guess the answer to that, but I don't know. I don't live in Squirrel Hill. But if any of you at 6 would care to answer that, or again, I can try to.
Can I speak to that?
Yes, sure. Hi, Allie.
Hi, friends. My name's Allie. I am an ally. I'm Jewish. And so I have a feeling, Lori, I have a feeling how our neighbors in Squirrel Hill, how they would respond to all of this. But I also wanted to just speak up to say that there are many people like me. I'm, raised from a conservative Zionist background over in Cleveland. And what I heard Chad speaking about was something that I got to realize firsthand in 2014 when I was on a trip funded by the Israeli government. I was studying agriculture. I was planting. I was right out of college, and I was just there to have fun. And what I saw was apartheid. And so it changed me as a person. I think that's a great question, Lori. And I think if you ever want to speak more about like the diversity of Jewish thought around this issue, I'm like happy to hold part of that. But I really appreciate, Chad, what you're bringing up and everything you're saying. Thank you.
Thank you, Allie. Yeah, and Lori, please, if there's more to the discussion you would like to add with that. I'm not being Jewish, I can't speak like Allie. However, I do know, just like in my world, there are, there isn't we're not all monolithic or whatever. At the same time, I will say this: I can't tell you who this person is. It's not my place to tell. But I just met a rabbi recently from Squirrel Hill, who told me that they had been in the closet. This is the term that they used for a long, long time, and that their children had helped to get them to come out of the closet. And so I imagine, this is my hope within my own communities, that there are people in the closet who are there for lots of understandable reasons that you can, like, again, if I was coming out of the closet sexually, there's reasons to stay in the closet, right? There's fear, there's what will people say about me, all these other matters. And so this person, this rabbi I spoke with, has been on a long journey. And I think the more carefully and lovingly and honestly people like us in our different sectors can, again, come forward, the more of us who come forward, the more comfortable it will be for others to see what it is. And we're all on this journey of consciousness. And because as a white man in this country, in this world, my eyes have been opened a million times over, and I'm sure they need to be opened more to see the things that need to be seen. So I'm grateful, Allie, for your testimony, and I hope that as we do this again with care and love, that more and more people will feel more comfortable to just to speak from their place. But Lori, how does that touch your question? I don't know if you want anything further.
Well,
Others.
so I like what you said about lovingly and considerately approaching our neighbors. That's crucial to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so anyway, that's my care. I'm in touch with members of the Jewish community, a huge variety, and it's really important to me that we consider them.
Yeah, I think, and I see a couple other comments here, and I don't need to be the one to govern all of them, but I do think that, as Hyla says, there's diversity of opinions in Israel.
Yeah.
And there's diversity of opinions in Pittsburgh or in Squirrel Hill. And so I see Brother Cliff. Yeah, the two who aren't positioned to answer aren't responding. Waiting for 9 minutes. Sorry. So is there someone else who would like to answer Lori's question? Or Cliff, do you have someone in mind?
Can I say I want to add one more thing?
Sure.
Yeah, again, I really appreciate what Lori's brought up. And as I've spoken with other Pittsburgh Jews who have a similar opinion to me, you know, we really want to get under the fear of what it means to be persecuted. And then also, you know, we can challenge people on the harm they're doing to others. And so, yeah, I think that those conversations are very important, but, you know, part of something I feel as a Jewish person is I want to get under anti-Semitism and separate it from any harm that I would ever do as a Jewish person, because if we're going to do harm to others, they're going to, you know, there's no difference. So yeah, I really appreciate you bringing that up. And I would like to keep working on some of our Squirrel Hill neighbors who feel that, you know, Palestinian liberation threatens their safety.
Yeah. It's a difficult, a very difficult problem. It's been going on for years. Not easy, but crucial.
Yeah, and I think with respect to all of us, in all of the areas that we need to grow individually or collectively. And we joked about this with Lila's visit to Florida. I think she jumped off, but we know that in our country, there's a lot of folks who don't want us to learn the truth, because the truth is painful at times, and or the truth feels threatening, or you know, and again, there's, go ahead, I'm sorry. Was that you, Kate? I'm sorry, I was just, yeah.
No, I'm sorry. I thought I was muted. I was
Oh,
holding
it's okay.
my cat, which you've already met.
Yeah.
And now he's a dynamic cat. I'm so sorry.
No, that's okay.
I thought I was muted. His
All
name
right.
is Boo.
I don't need to keep talking. That's all. I just, anybody else want to carry this conversation any further, or begin a new
Yeah, I was just going to say, I did a little bit of searching today before the meeting to see what kinds of responses different groups were making to that overture. And one response I saw from the Reformed Jewish movement that said that the PCUSA has taken an entirely unhelpful, even counterproductive approach toward achieving a two-state solution. The Anti-Defamation League, it was predictable that they wouldn't be very happy with it, but they said choosing to utilize such a caustic and demonizing term as apartheid leads into an unhealthy discourse that, despite all the injustice in the world, positions Israel and only Israel as uniquely evil among the nations. And then they went on to say, moreover, this resolution will do nothing to constructively advance understanding and peace between the parties or promote a two-state solution, is the shortened version of that. So, I mean, I think, and there have been other statements along those lines that the fears and concerns that the resolution would lead to a worsening relation between Presbyterian and Jewish communities, and also that it wouldn't do anything to promote a two-state solution. Are the two major things that I saw.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Tom. I do think those are probably, maybe not completely, but those of us who've been in conversations like this for a while, I'm sorry, those are kind of maybe predictable. Yeah.
It looks
Brad,
like
Ron, someone had their hand up, I thought.
Oh, I have a question about.
Ronnie was muted. Were you saying something, Ronnie?
This is Lori talking now. I had a question about what our goal is, and are we is this working effectively toward the goal, which would be, peaceful resolution? And if we're stirring up animosity, then that's working against our goal. I don't know. I mean, I see what you're saying. I understand apartheid. I mean, as best as I can. I never had lived under it, but it's we need to be, in my mind, we need to be considering the goal and how we can get there.
Yeah. Well, I think if you and I see Ronnie, I think you have to unmute yourself, Ronnie, if you want to speak. So, Lori, I will just say real quickly. Oh, now I lost my train of thought. But what the goal, I think ultimately, and the reason for doing this from our church's standpoint, the reason that an overture was made and then passed, ultimately the goal is for liberation and freedom and justice for every person in the situation. This is for Palestinian freedom and all people's freedom. And in this particular situation, I think the reason why it took 12 years perhaps is what you're concerned about. We don't want to just throw words around, but in order to get to the ultimate goal of real peace, peace is not just, the absence of tension or, we can have, someone was telling me recently, like, this is again, Peter's territory. These historians on the call could speak to this, but someone talked about how during the Roman Empire, there was peace, global peace. Well, in some human way that was, but we know that there was peace with significant oppression. And like, if you can keep the poor, or you can keep some people down, and certainly our history is ugly in so many different ways, and so many different peoples, certainly including the Jewish people historically. But real peace is where there is justice. And so I do think that the term apartheid can't be ignored, and I don't think it should be, in order to get to the goal, which is real peace. I don't think real peace and justice necessarily means 2 states. There aren't 2 states in South Africa. There aren't 2 states. Well, there's 50 states in our country, but there's not. There's not an African American state. There is the United States. So we have these other histories where, but that's frightening, and all of this is connected to our emotion, and certainly I think many in our hearts should be mindful and careful, thinking about the concern and fear that might cause. But ultimately, if we want real peace between God's people, means I think we can't ignore and just not say things that might not feel comfortable to be said. So again, Ronnie, can you unmute yourself? I know you were, okay.
I did, but I wanted to defer to Michael, and then I'll just make a comment or two.
Okay. Michael? You're muted as well, Michael. You okay, Michael? I don't know if you're frozen or just moving slowly. I think Michael might be frozen. Oh, now he's. Yeah, we still can't hear you, Michael. Oh.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
First, I have a response to the person who raised the question about whether it is appropriate, diplomatic, and good to name the situation in Israel as apartheid. And I would say that, you know, you always have the kind of reaction to an honest and right assessment of the situation, such as that this upsets and it will obstruct peace in the long run. I think that history has told us the opposite, especially in the case of South Africa, where it was so effective, the anti-apartheid movement. And I think it will be similar in regard to Israel, that it is the reality, and we should name the reality without fear. And I think this is a tremendous advantage, a tremendous advance that the Presbyterian Church USA has made in making this decision as a first step in hopefully something which will be adopted by many, many other churches and secular organizations and so on. But I have a question for you, Chad, to tag on to this little ramble, which is, what has the reaction thus far been of the state of Israel itself to this decision of the Presbyterian Church, or have they reacted at all?
Well, I will say briefly, I don't know that there's been much. Maybe others of you do. I remember back in 2014, and I was actually in Israel, Palestine at the time, when our denomination voted to divest its holdings with Caterpillar, Hewlett-Packard, and Motorola. And the holdings that we had as a denomination, some of you know the PCUSA is very, very fiscally conservative. So we care about our investments, rightly or wrongly, in my opinion. But Benjamin Netanyahu, prime minister at the time, sent a message to our General Assembly through one of his ministers, inviting the Presbyterian Church. So our holdings at the time was $21 million. We had invested in Caterpillar, Motorola, and Hewlett-Packard, the grand total of 21 million, which obviously is not very much money in this sphere we're talking about. But Prime Minister Netanyahu, through one of his colleagues, sent message to the General Assembly, on the floor of the General Assembly, pleading with the presbyters to vote against divestment. And he invited the general presbyter, the couple leaders there, to fly to his office in Israel to have a consult. So I know that that bothered him. And I think that that bothered I heard that then. I don't know. It doesn't seem like this government currently cares much about what anybody thinks, including its own citizens. But that's me. I don't know. Has any of you else, Tom or Peter or others, have you heard much backlash coming from? I haven't.
I'm unaware of any reaction whatsoever. That doesn't mean there wasn't one, but I'm unaware of any. I can tell you, as many of you know, for close to 3 decades, I worked for the United Electrical Workers Union. When UE a few years back endorsed the boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement, the union was sued, which was quite definitely a response. And obviously, there was no basis for a lawsuit, and that because we do have constitutionally protected free speech in the United States at the time, or at least we did. And so there was nothing came of that.
So yeah, go ahead, Ronnie.
Okay, so I just would like to add a few things. First, obviously, I said in the chat, I wanted to thank Tom. I go back with Tom, how many decades? About 4, okay? 30, 40 years. I kind of, can't do the math right now. So I support the national aspirations of both the Palestinian people and the Israeli people. And it's very important for, as a member of the Jewish community, to make a distinction between criticizing Israel and anti-Semitism, because when people lump that together, there is no conversation. And while I don't agree with everything that's been said here, I agree with a portion of it. And I just want to throw in a few ideas, because this is really your conversation. And I'm just, glad to be a part of this, which is, Chad did make a reference to having military law for Palestinians and civil law for Israelis in the occupied territories. But I also want to talk about, just for a moment, how important the issues of occupation and settlement are. And this new government has taken 10 illegal outposts, everything in a quote, and have made them settlements, and then are also expanding settlements, in addition to trying to do all these things to break the authority of the Supreme Court there, which has been moving to the right in any case, but still is another branch of government, at least theoretically. And for those who may not have been able to catch up on the news, there have been as many as 800,000 people, and almost, not quite, a general strike of sectors within Israel, Jewish people who have come out, who are pretty center, not the usual suspects, not the progressives, who have come out and are really concerned. Now, the problem there is that the voices of Palestinians are not being highlighted as they should be, nor as they were in the the 10 demonstrations, the cottage cheese and all the economic stuff. But I just want to put some emphasis on settlements, the occupation, and the role of the U.S. government, and the importance of speaking to representatives. There are many in the House of Representatives and in the Senate who have a clearer vision of what's going on and what should be the role of the U.S. government. So I don't want to skew the conversation or keep it going so much as to just add some fuel for thought. Bernie Sanders was interviewed by oh God, what's her name? Margaret Brennan on Face the Nation about 2 Sundays ago. It's a 26-minute interview on his book, and it's outstanding. And the piece on the Middle East is brief, but I think very cogent. So thanks again. And I'm not trying to reopen all the conversation. And just, I'm J Street a long time, and I've been involved in the Middle East since, I don't know,
a long time ago.
a very long time, probably since college. So, okay. And I'm also a member of Temple Sinai.
Wonderful. Yeah, and I know we've met with PIN stuff, and it's great to see you. And thank you for all of that. And I'm not the host of this meeting, so I don't know that it's meant simply to be for those of us in the Christian sector or not. So I don't think that's probably so I'm grateful for those additions, Sister Ronnie. Thank you. I know that there are some announcements that maybe, I know Kate has a couple, and maybe I think some others do. So if you have to jump off soon, I don't know, Peter, you're in charge of this meeting. I didn't mean to take over, but we could maybe, I don't know how much longer we were intending to gather. I'm not in any rush.
Right. Well, I would suppose no later than 8:30. So, but we're good.
Okay.
I don't want to cut short the conversation, but neither do I want to keep it on life support if there's nothing there.
Sure. So why don't we take, Sister Kate, how about we take the next 8 minutes or so, if there's any more discussion, and then we can close with some announcements for the good of the body. Maybe no one else has anything, that's fine too. Yes, Lori. I'm sorry that you're still muted, Lori.
I appreciate hearing all the voices. It's been very helpful. I really appreciate that.
Likewise. And I know that some others have put in the chat some things. Anybody care to elaborate?
Chad, a question occurs to me. By the time the General Assembly made its important decision,
Yeah.
So many influential human rights organizations had weighed in and said, looking at all the facts, we have to conclude that we're talking about apartheid with respect to the conditions of Palestine under Israeli rule. Would you care to speculate as to how influential those organizations were, those pronouncements were, in helping to achieve a pretty respectable majority within the General Assembly for that overture?
That's a good question. And I guess if I were to speculate, I would assume that it did help. I think that, and I don't recall, I think in comparison to other denominations, again, though the Presbyterians take forever to make a decision, generally, I think we were kind of on the front end of the divestment. And so I think that might have been a little bit more of a nail biter to that end, because maybe there wasn't as much populace talking in that way. Certainly, I'm relatively unaware of Amnesty. I know who Amnesty is. My mother's been a longtime member, and so I guess I kind of equate Amnesty with a lot of your generations on this call who have been fighting the good fight as best for a long time. So I thought that Amnesty, their report probably helped to carry a lot of folks into, I don't know, would you all agree with that? Is that, as I know that not everyone agrees with everything Amnesty said, but that they were using the term, did that carry weight for you, all of you? I just assumed it did, because it's a large organization, right? Isn't Amnesty pretty big?
Yeah.
So yeah, Kate.
I think, yeah, I mean, I don't know the dates, other people might know, but I think Amnesty characterized it as an apartheid state quite a while ago. And I think actually Human Rights Watch coming out was even more, I mean, they wrestled with it for maybe like the Presbyterians for about a time, I don't know, a long time.
Yeah.
And then Kenneth Roth, I think the director,
Oh, right.
he was very reluctant. I believe his family are Holocaust survivors. I don't know that that's why, but he was very reluctant. But it took them a while, and I also think I met with Beth Salem on several occasions, 2004, 2007 in Tel Aviv, and then I was back in 2015. And I've really seen a significant shift in their thinking. And so I really feel like Beth Salem, the leading human rights organization in Israel, coming out the way they have, has had a deep impact on how people think. I don't know so much. I mean, I think Ronnie said that there was the demands inside Israel are not really reflective of Palestinians. At this point, maybe that'll change, but I know that that's true. Palestinians have been pushed out of the demonstrations. Their flags have been, like, they're not allowed to carry their flags. So there is a lot of tension inside Israel proper right now over that. And we know people who are Palestinian Israeli citizens who are quite nervous right now inside. They're very, very nervous. Like they are incredibly nervous. They have no idea what to expect.
Yeah.
But I do think that characterization, I do want to agree with what Michael said earlier. It's very important. By giving something its true characterization is not, I don't think it create, I think we have to get to the truth, and I don't think there's a way around it. I think Jimmy Carter wrote about it quite a few years ago, right? I mean, he used the term and said it may come to this if there's not change, and there has not been significant. In fact, the nation state laws, the land laws have grown more severe, and now we're seeing pogroms committed against the Palestinians.
Right. Yeah, and I would just add to that, Kate, I appreciate, and I do see Ali has posted in there that it was February 1st, I think, that this year, or 2022, when Amnesty maybe made it official. But there, our executive director, Jonathan Kutab, is actually in Israel Palestine now. And I put in the chat earlier an article that he wrote. It's very long. He's a human rights attorney, and he can talk with the best of them. And he's very, certainly much brighter than I am about matters like this. But if you wanted to look at that for further thought, but what Kate, what you said, I'm sorry, I get so. One of the things Jonathan has been talking about recently in our FOSNA gatherings, and I don't know how you all feel about this, and I don't know, Ronnie, how you feel, or Ali, how you feel, but there is this sense, because the government has gotten so far right, Netanyahu is now center compared to some of the people in his cabinet, or whatever it's called. I mean, he's not center, but like the one gentleman who won 30+% of the vote, he's calling for another Nakba, and a lot of things that are really what Jonathan is mindful of. And I wonder if you are hopeful of, even hearing Ronnie say 800,000 Israelis are striking, or it may not, again, they may not be speaking in the same way as Palestinians would. And I agree that Palestinian voices need to be, just like anybody who is silenced, they're the voices, I think, that need to be heard the most. That's, I think that about any setting, not just Israel Palestine. But if this government is so far to the right or to the wrong, Jonathan has said that he, like there's no hiding anymore. If there was a sense from before that there's this masquerade that we're democracy, we're the only democracy in the Middle East, or these kind of things that are being said or have been said, it seems like, and maybe with the United States backing and impunity, like, what are you going to do to us? We can do whatever we want. I know that that's crass. I don't mean it that way, but I think perhaps there's hope in this, as bad as it is, that the masses of Israelis and Palestinians will somehow collectively resist this kind of and find ways of coming together. And I don't know that that's going to happen or not, but it does seem like the blatancy that that some of the government, that's been going on. It's not just new, but it seems to be getting more and more blatantly racist or blatantly. So that's an idea that's been floating around, but I don't know how you all feel about that. Fingers crossed. Yeah. Any other comments, questions? Sister Kate, you have a couple announcements.
Just very quickly, one is that I said this at the beginning. Thank you, Chad. Thanks for this really important discussion as well. But the Carnegie Mellon University does a foreign film festival every year. There's a film they're featuring called Mediterranean Fever. The director is Palestinian. What I'm reading about it, it received like the best screenwriting award at the Cannes Film Festival. It's supposed to be less political than a lot of films coming out of Palestine, and, you know, very human interest story. It's supposed to be amazing. But I want to encourage, I don't know the date, but to keep our eyes open for that film festival. It's called Mediterranean Fever. The second thing is an appeal from our friends in Ohio. There is a 75-year-old businessman from Youngstown, Ohio. There's an Arab American community center in Youngstown. I've been there many, many times. We've done a lot of work with them. They've been here. Anyway, he's been arrested in Israel for political activism. And there's a campaign to try to, he's got health issues. There's a campaign to try to get him out of jail in Israel. And if I can send Chad you the information, maybe people would just be willing to just a quick note to the senator in Ohio, Sherrod Brown, I think it's his name, and then also Anthony Blinken. But they need to hear from us. I've written to both already, but Ohio, people in Ohio keep writing me and saying, please, please help us with this. So
yeah, send that to me. I think you
I'll
might have
send it.
send it again, please, and I'll share it with.
Please do, just a quick call. I mean, this is terrible. He's, you know, I don't know what crime he's committed other than political activism, but, you know, he wants to get home to his family in Youngstown. Then we could go meet him after they let him out.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Thank you, Kate.
yeah.
Anybody else have any upcoming events to make note of, or things that we should learn and know together while we're here? Go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, well, one thing I think we need to do is to thank you, Chad, for a very nice presentation and dealing with a very complex issue. And I think we all appreciated it. And I certainly appreciated everybody else's contributions and the discussion that we had here tonight. And this is, of course, an ongoing discussion and the discussion of how to present this with love, as Chad has emphasized properly. I think that's important. So thanks to everybody, and let's give ourselves an applause for this.
Yes. Thank you all for having us, for putting it together. I will invite you to two quick things, and then I'll sign off. But I have a lot of olive oil in my kitchen, and if any of you are interested in supporting my brother, our friend Yad Burnett in the village of Bilain near Ramallah, I have yet to put the olive oil in bottles, which is, some of you may have already, I think Tom may have already paid for some. I need to get it to you, but it's a great, this year's harvest was much better than last year's. So a liter of olive oil from the West Bank is being sold just for $25. And if you want to buy a can, a big one like I'll always would sell, Sister Kate, you can get it 15 liters for $270. Can't beat it.
It's the best.
It is the best, I think. And one last thing, we are going to have an event at my church, March 18th. It's a Saturday, and it's during Lent, and then there's going to be another event at the Islamic Center, Pittsburgh, on April 19th, which is in Ramadan. So there's an overlap there, and I've become good friends with some of the board members there. And so we decided to have a joint kind of fast and prayer for peace in Palestine, and then close, with a meal. So I will try to send the flyer out to Peter and Tom. But if you're interested in joining with us, it will be Saturday. I know Saturday is not the best day for our Jewish family members. I apologize for that. So we need to have another one. Maybe Ronnie and Allie, you can connect with me at some point and we can do something more holistic for all of us. But it is Saturday. The one at ICP is going to be on a Wednesday, the 19th of April. And I know many of you have probably been, but the Islamic Center is reopening its Humanities Day, where it really tries to bring people who are not part of the Muslim faith to the mosque for celebrations. So anyway, if you want olive oil, hit me up. That's right, it's your Sabbath or ours. Thank you. And we'll keep in touch.
Thank you so much, Chad. Thank you, everyone, for coming. I declare this assembly closed.
Thank you, Peter.
Take good care, everyone.
Great to see all of you. Thank you.